I think we need to go back and answer the question, what's my view of race to the top? I'm certainly glad to see that, as our panelists have said, that there's attention focused on education, because we certainly need it. The National Assessment of Educational Progress for the last several years really has produced some dismal results. In fact, I would argue that the state of education in this country is disgraceful. And I want to use that word purposefully. And I'll give you some statistics to back that up. In 2009, and I'll focus on New York State, 17% of all students failed to achieve the basic level in mathematics, and 41% of disabled children failed to reach the basic level in mathematics. And my school focuses on children with disabilities. 29% of all students in New York State failed to achieve the basic level in reading, and 62% of disabled children. That's just unacceptable. So do we need a focus on education? Absolutely. It's high time. Will this is what I would say is necessary but not sufficient. We need to do much more than that. And I agree with Jennifer about not bashing teachers. These are well-intentioned, hard-working people. This is a systemic problem that has its roots in many places. I think teacher education is an issue. Connecticut just recently changed their certification exam. And they went and moved to testing teachers who teach reading on the foundations of language. Over 50% of the teachers who took the test failed. And in a really moving piece in the Times, one of the teachers was interviewed and said, "Look, I don't understand this. I graduated from," and I'm not going to say the university, but it's a state school in Connecticut that is the largest producers of teachers in Connecticut. So some of you probably already know which school I'm talking about. And I got straight A's, 4.0 index when I graduated from college. And I prepared for this test, and I failed it. There's a disconnect that is absolutely begging to be examined more carefully. So it's not just about training our teachers, which is necessary. It's not just about measuring the results, which is also important. It's not just about seeing that our teachers are evaluated. It goes back to all of these components, including the nature of the training our teachers receive. I believe, because of my perspective, is rather focused, so it may not be shared. I believe that the real problem is early identification of reading issues and teaching kids to read. One of the statistics that strikes me is that 3,000 students drop out of high school every day in this country. And the Partnership for Reading has estimated that 75% of those are due to problems with reading. If we fix the reading problem early, which I don't know that Race to the Top will do, I think it's encouraging. If we fix the reading problem early, we eliminate all of the problems associated with it that come afterwards. There's a correlation in terms of research. You mentioned this, and I think research is what needs to guide us. Not quick fixes, not politically expedient answers, not things that get headline, but solid research. And we know for a fact that we have the information to teach kids how to read. We need to get it into the hands of the teachers and support them as they do that. So Race to the Top is a start. I do think that it is a start because of the 4 items that you listed, and all of them are important, but I don't think it's sufficient. Necessary, but not sufficient.
And just to add to that point, I think we should all remember the math. It's just in New York State, it's a $700 million allocation. That's a few dollars per child. So this is really a marginal program, and I think it is more about the focus than the actual financing.
And when we come to the specific questions, Dr. Russell will address what you're doing at your school, the Windward School, with your Teacher Training Institute, to address the issue of teacher competence. So another question relating to teachers, we understand that well-trained, dedicated teachers are essential to the success of any educational reform. And we've also been encouraged that the federal government has emphasized the need to hold teachers accountability, rewarding excellent teachers for their skills and dedication, and eliminating teachers who fail to fulfill their professional responsibilities. The federal government is promoting the training of 10,000 new teachers in science and math over the next 2 years. That's also encouraging. how do we encourage, and I guess President Raab will be one of the first to answer this question, how do we encourage young people in college to accept teaching as a challenging, well-compensated profession?
It's a very important question, and I think in all the tough statistics we're looking at, I want to share some good news. We are now entering a period where becoming a teacher is a very popular profession. That may be because of the focus on education. It may be on the fact in New York State that in the last 8 years there's been about a 43% increase in teacher salary. And it's certainly because of what's happened in other markets, and particularly in finance and on Wall Street. Both the lack of jobs and also I think just young people looking at where they want to put their efforts. So we have had in the last year a 46% increase in the number of applications to our ed school. So I have very good news to report in that respect. The challenge for us is to make sure that we're effectively preparing teachers. Because unfortunately, the retention rate of teachers in schools is not high. And that's because often there's a disconnect with what skills we provide in an education school and what you really need in the ground. So we at Hunter have now moved to focusing on how do you train a teacher to deal with the things you need to deal with in the classroom. Every student teacher videotapes their performance. It's brought back, and a team of experts stops the tapes, reviews with them, talks about unreleased students, focus on the classroom, how are you teaching? So we in the ed schools really to be on the forefront need to make sure we're using the tools, and someone mentioned technology. Classrooms are changing, they must change, so we have to prepare teachers to use that technology. So right now, the good news is people want to be teachers, and the good news is that all of us have really come together to think about retooling ourselves so that we provide the most effective teaching and support for teachers in the classroom.
Thank you. Ann?
I think when asked the question about teachers, there's nothing better than a great teacher. The good teacher teaches, the great teacher inspires. I can rattle off 1,000 quotes about teaching that are all true. It's hard to encourage young people often to see their way to a teaching career, because I really believe that teaching is a calling. I believe that those who enter education in earnest and want to stay there and want to do this very difficult work for the long term, it's a calling. It's not something somebody can just dangle a course or a carrot at and say, hey, there are a lot of opportunities in this district. It's something inside of them. Otherwise, what's always been fascinating to me is to watch year after year, hundreds upon hundreds of young people graduating from teachers' colleges. Forget the curriculum issues about teacher colleges, but just that they do it and want to go into these systems that are broken in half. It's something inside of them, and it's more than a curriculum, and it's more than public relations. And when you find those people, that's a gift. That's a gift if you get them in your schools and you can nurture them. A way to encourage young people to develop that calling is to make teaching as important from a prestige point of view as it really is. I think second to parenting, teaching is the most important thing that we have. Teachers, it's the most important profession. Let's start treating teachers like professionals. They're riding a public relations wave right now, and that's wonderful that more of them are flocking to the field. But at our schools, we give teachers business cards. We have head of departments. We continue their staff development on an ongoing basis so that they continue to learn and continue to be smarter and bring it back to the students. And we develop master teachers. There is actually a path for them. They're not just in this spin cycle in a public school. It's a twofold problem: what we're teaching them in the teachers' colleges, how we're developing, and what we do with them once they're in the systems. And both need a lot of work and attention. But teach them, treat them as professionals that they are. Business cards, stationery, department heads, and for God's sake, pay them more than we've been paying them in our recent history. There are some districts, in fact, you mentioned New York City, that are doing much better in terms of teacher pay, but most really are not. And as long as it's at the bottom of the barrel and teachers are considered to be second-class citizens in terms of professional value, we're going to have big problems recruiting new people to the field. But it truly is something deep inside of the people who do it best and who do it for the longest time. It is a calling.